So to get the segment started, allow me to welcome in Dean from the Hewitson Valley in Australia. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure to be here.
I wish I could take credit for having him fly all the way in from Australia, but the Wine Festival provided a perfect excuse to have him come join us today. And this is, he was showing me, we're going to bring him his wines in a second, because believe me, I will be tasting his wines. But let's talk a little bit, before I even get to the wines, let's talk about the vineyard, because this is your family here. This is a beautiful picture of your family, right?
Yeah, Rick, we have a family-owned winery in the Barossa Valley. Barossa Valley is probably Australia's most famous wine region. We have the oldest vineyards in the world of Cabernet Sauvignon, Grenache, Shiraz, Semillon, and a Mourvèdre vineyard planted in 1853, which incidentally, that's a vineyard that I control. So
1853.
1853. It's 164 years old this year.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Just it's a magnificent resource and a lot of fun to work with these old vines.
So I was looking up Dean's bio, and we had the opportunity to talk a little bit earlier today, and I was talking to the folks from MS Walker Bum coming in, which were super excited about some of the wines they'll now be showcasing in Rhode Island. And you have an extensive background. So let's talk about a little bit about your background, because you studied both in the United States and in Australia.
Yes, I did, Rick. I finished school many years ago now, and I did my undergraduate in winemaking at a famous winemaking school in Australia, in South Australia, not far from the Barossa Valley. And I was lucky enough to get a great job with a terrific wine company. And my boss realised I didn't quite study hard enough in my undergraduate, and he was right. So he actually sent me off to UC Davis to get my master's degree, and that was back in 1990 to 92. He also encouraged me to work in France. I did many vintages in different regions in France, so I guess my wines speak to all of those experiences.
So before you went, I mean, because you were in Australia first to study, and then you came over to California to go to the United States. So what was your passion? How did you get involved in wines? You determined that this is the path you were going to go.
Actually, I was accepted into film producing, would you believe?
No, that's completely opposite worlds.
And I sort of thought that was a pretty cool thing to do. But I got a letter saying, come along for your dancing and singing routine. And I actually didn't have a dancing and singing routine. So I looked down my list of things, and winemaking was amongst them. So I thought, well, that's a far safer choice.
So winemaking made it along with being an actor and dancing and singing. That's great. So when you went to California and you were studying there, did you have the opportunity to tour around? I'm sure you have since then as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, Lou, we weren't married then, but Lou came over numerous times, and we travelled the length and breadth of California. In fact, with some of my classmates, we ended up in Oregon and Washington well before those regions were, even really famous for making wine. So it was a great experience.
So now Australia was in a similar boat for a long period of time, that it wasn't really well known for producing wines, and the wines that it was known for were very specific ones that are coming out. The perception seems to be changing now, and like you just mentioned, Oregon and Washington State and other things, other wine regions, both in the United States and as well as internationally, where their wines are becoming better known or better accepted, I guess is another way to say it, that people are tasting them and experimenting with them? Yeah,
I think the world has become so much smaller, and particularly now with social media, people know about so much more, so much faster. Right. And particularly when I was in California back in 1990, most of the wines I was drinking with my classmates from all around the world weren't even available in Australia.
Right.
So that was a magnificent learning curve for me.
So
great.
Your wines now, and we're very thankful to hear that they're going to be more available and coming in, and we've got distributors that are helping bring them into New England. But let's talk a little bit about the ones that you brought today, because there's a story behind each of them.
There is.
All right,
there is.
So tell me what we have here today.
So we have a family-owned company, and as the managing director of the company, I've done the right thing, and I've named these wines after my family members. So we have the Lulu Sauvignon Blanc, which is Adelaide Hills, a very cool climate Sauvignon Blanc, named Lulu after my wife Lou.
Beautiful.
So, are we going to taste these?
We're going to taste them for sure. You don't have to. I'm just waiting for you to talk, that's all.
Okay. I'm a little bit, thank you. Thanks, Rick.
So he's going to be tasting these wines all day, going around with people to start introducing them. And then this weekend, cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, so cool climate, Adelaide Hills. Adelaide Hills is really regarded as the premier region in Australia for Sauvignon Blanc.
Okay.
And in fact, the Wall Street Journal put out an article about 3 months ago, and they named this wine, Lulu, in their top 10 bankable wines from around the world. Top 10 Sauvignon Blanc bankable wines from around the globe.
Beautiful.
So that was a great wrap.
So now, we were talking before the show about the style of your vineyards, and you mentioned a little bit about how they're all set up. There's multiple vineyards that fall under your portfolio. So when I think about that, I relate back to going into Sonoma or Napa, how people have estate-grown wines, but then they have sourcing wines, and then they have vineyards that are separated throughout there. So the vines that you said they're 164 years old, that's a vineyard that's existed for a long time, and now it's come under your own.
Yeah, that's right. So I guess I realised when I was in California what made South Australia special to the rest of the world, and what it is we have these. We've never had phylloxera. The great pest that wiped out California back in the 1800s, and also much of Europe in the 1800s. So it's never come to South Australia. So we have these oldest vines in the world, and I realised that was our edge. And so I've set up over the years. I've managed to put together a suite of these unique, very old vineyards, and that's what our wines are made from. So they're very unique.
So winemaking, and let's kind of talk about this, because even in Napa, Temecula, different parts of California where winemaking started, Washington State, Oregon, it wasn't going on for as long as people think. And I think that when you think of Italy and when you think of Australia, winemaking was going on there for quite some time.
Yeah, we sort of originated around just before the California. We're just slightly older than California, basically. So nowhere near as old as the European winemaking regions.
Okay.
But just a little bit older than California.
Now, how many different varietals, I know we're going to taste the next one, but how many different varietals overall are you producing?
We make about 6 or 7 wines, and we bring some of those into Australia. There's a couple that we don't,
okay.
But we focus on the beautiful Sauvignon Blanc, and also the Rhone style reds, which Barossa Valley is famous for. These old vineyards of Grenache, Shiraz, and Mourvèdre.
So climate driven for these vineyards, and you said they're separated. Is it similar to what I would think about in other regions where you've got some that are cooler, some that are warmer?
Correct, yeah, very much. If you took California as a bit of a blueprint, South Australia is not too dissimilar. It's the only big difference, well, the main big difference is our soils. It's so much older. So Napa Valley, for example, the soils are about 20,000 years old. In the Barossa Valley, they're about 200 million years old.
Really?
So we have some of the oldest soils on the planet.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known
Yeah.
that. Now I got to answer that for my next history quiz on that. That's awesome. All right, so let's talk about the next one that you got here.
Okay. So Miss Harry, this is our Rhone style red. Miss Harry is Grenache, Shiraz, Mourvèdre with a splash of Cinsault and Carignan, and it's named Miss Harry after my daughter Harriet.
Beautiful.
So our first release of Miss Harry was 2000. The 2000 vintage, and Harriet was born in 1999, so she just turned 18.
Awesome. Could you talk a little bit about the last 2 grapes that you mentioned that are in this?
Cinsault and Carignan. So they're typically grown in the south of France, in the Rhone Valley, and blended with the local wines.
Okay.
So we make a very similar style to that.
So this, making it a blend, and in Italy they talk a lot about the blends being super Tuscans for the different things.
Yep.
Are there grapes that are in any of these wines that are just indigenous to Australia?
No, we don't have any indigenous grapes. So all of our grapes came from Europe, and a few were collected from South Africa also.
Oh my God, this is beautiful.
Oh, it's a gorgeous wine. It's strawberries and cream, with all the dried herbs and spice that you would find in a
It's
wine.
got a nice spice finish. Very nice.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's a really Provençal dried herb character. Yeah, beautiful.
So, will all 3 of these be available at the Wine Festival this weekend?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'm looking forward to pouring them. In fact, I'm really looking forward to the festival. So
It's the Newport Wine Festival. If you've never been before, I have to say this will be my, 7th, 8th year going and attending to it. I usually go on the Saturdays. They've got events leading up to it this week. So there's a Friday night gala. I think there might still be tickets left. You definitely want to check on the website. I know Saturday is close to selling out if it hasn't already, and Sunday there were tickets left for it. When we do the editorial post on this afterwards, I'll be sure that we include links and post it out there and put it on social media. But this is an event that if you can make it down there, you want to. And the weekend is looking a lot more promising. I'm told that from the weather forecasters, we'll find out what's true and what's not. But right now, Saturday looks to be in the high 70s, and then Sunday through next week, we're going to be back in 80s. So like I said, I'm not let go in summer yet.
Like I talked about the old garden, Rick, the very old vineyard of Old Garden. We're serving that at the gala dinner on Friday night.
On Friday night you're serving that?
Yeah.
And that's the 164-year-old
Yes, it is.
vine.
So that's worth coming for. just that
Absolutely.
itself.
I'm going to have to stop down to that. All right, so as you described the next one, I do have a question that was brought up to me about people that were going to Australia and visiting and looking to go to
Yes.
the vineyards.
Yep.
And one of you asked me about, it was a tasting room, I thought what they asked, but they brought up a very specific name, the cellar door.
The cellar door, that's what we call our tasting rooms in Australia. It's a door to the cellar. It's a door to your own cellar also, because that's where you can purchase the wine direct from the winery. And sometimes we offer wines just exclusively at the cellar door too. Our cellar door was just recently opened, but we renovated the old house on the property. Our property is one of the original settlements, right near the river. It's got a well. It had sort of its own self-sustainability, with
Excellent,
pigs and
yeah.
cows and fruit trees and vineyards, obviously. And we renovated the old smokehouse into our cellar door. So it's a great building. It's a beautiful old building.
So this is the equivalent of the tasting room, is there? And is it more like what we call here, we have the cafes where you can also have light appetizers or food, that kind of thing?
We offer light appetizers. We offer just some simple food, a vineyard platter with some local meats. Barossa Valley is also very famous for its food. We have a friend who smokes salmon, so we can order that. One of Australia's best salmon, and beautiful local cheeses also, as well as matching that with some international cheeses.
So from a touristy standpoint, what would be the closest airport if they were to fly in to go to your...
You fly into the airport of Adelaide, the city of Adelaide.
Okay.
So from the US, you would come via Sydney or Melbourne or Brisbane on the east coast,
Yep.
and then into Adelaide. But if you're coming from Asia, you can fly directly into Adelaide from Asia.
Oh God, that's awesome. All right, so we got one last one to try here. This one was amazing. Was this the one we're on right here?
Yeah, we're on Ned and Henry's Shiraz. So many years ago, obviously, Miss Harry was our first wine that we released. And after a couple of years, I realised I had to restore harmony in the house. Her older brothers, Ned and Henry, were not so happy that they had this out. So I quickly introduced Ned and Henry's Shiraz. And of course, the question I always get is, will they have to share? And I say to them, well, in life, you've got to work that out pretty quickly.
Family dispute at the winery. I love that.
Yeah. So this is a Barossa Valley Shiraz in all its glory. Barossa Valley is famous for its Shiraz. We've always made a wine that's very, very balanced, and this is typical Ned and Henry's. Just balanced, beautiful fruit, lovely structure, lovely black and red forest fruits, beautiful structure. It's not the over-extracted style that we became infamous for, and it's certainly not over-aged. We use freshly seasoned French oak barrels.
How long is this in the barrel for?
This is for about 12 to 15 months typically.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this one was a 2014, right? Okay.
Yeah, and all of these wines receive very high recommendations and reviews from both the Australian press, the English press, and the American press. So really
we'll be working to list where you can purchase these wines locally, and I'll work with Ms. Walker to find out about that. But like I said, if you're going to the wine festival this weekend, stop by, tell Dean you saw him on the show, check out the wines. He'll have a few more for you to taste there. The 164-year-old vine, that's new, so that's going to...
Yeah.
Now, will that eventually be available, we think?
That's actually on a pre-sale right now in Rhode Island.
Beautiful.
So we're offering it to the restaurants and also to the local bottle shops.
So we can say
It's a
coming
pre-sale.
soon on that one.
It's phenomenal.
Okay.
It's phenomenal.
So we could say that one will be out soon, and I'll make sure I get the name fully so I can list that for you, because anything 164 years old vines, I got to try that.
It's called Old Garden.
Old Garden.
Yeah, Old Garden.
Old Garden. Love
Yeah.
that. Well, Dean, thank you for making the time to come in today. I know
Thanks.
you're busy going around seeing everybody. I look forward to seeing you this weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun. So
Thanks so much.
thank you for being here today.
Thanks.
Greatly
Cheers.
appreciate it.